So today we wanted to talk to you about Xbox and the physical media. Did you see him look at me? So today we wanted to take a look at Xbox. There was a lot of leaked documents, and I want to say, for starters, Cosmo and I, who is right here and being very cooperative today. So I'm sure that you'll say, well, look, he's a PlayStation fanboy. He's got all this PlayStation stuff. I do have a ton of, well, he's going. I do have a ton of Xbox games, which I think Jill can pan to because she's my camera person. We don't do gendered terms here. That was a joke.
They're over there.
They're all over here. I do love Xbox, okay? I love all of these things. I have a PC, I have an Xbox, I have a PlayStation, everything, Nintendo Switch. So here's the thing. There were a lot of major leaks around Xbox, and you might say, well, Jay, you're going to get taken down again like the Gotham Knights. These were official leaks, as in Microsoft apparently messed up. A lot of stuff got out with the FTC court case, unredacted documents that are just out in the public now that get into a lot of what Microsoft's plans have been for the last few years moving forward into things like a next console generation in 2028, which on its own, that's fine. No problems with that. I'm okay with that. I don't care. But there's other things with this that are pretty bad for the gaming infrastructure and landscape when it comes to things like video game preservation or media ownership, or any of those things. We're going to kind of get into some of them because I saw a video that actually sparked my interest in this. I hadn't heard about it before, but some ordinary gamers, Mudahar, who I've talked about before on this channel, who I try not to go out of my way to just copy his videos or anything, but he talked about this whole issue. I thought it was very interesting, and I kind of wanted to add to it a little bit and take a look at it because some of these documents, they point to a future that is not great for a lot of gamers, for a lot of the video game industry. They want to create, at least according to these documents and from everything that it's looking like, an infrastructure where you do not own anything, where you rent every game essentially, where you are beholden to every terms of service, every EULA that you sign, every time you click, oh, whatever, it's all good, I'll just accept these conditions and move on, and then I'll download the game. And they want to keep going on this. And it would be one thing if it ended where it's at right now. There goes Cosmo's hair. Because here's how it's at right now. We have options. We have physical media and we have digital media. And I will tell you right now, I like both of those things. Okay, I will go and I will buy games like this. Assassin's Creed 1. This is an Xbox 360 title. There is backwards compatibility with the Xbox Series consoles and Xbox One X, obviously going back, with this game. You can put it in, it downloads an emulatable version of the game from the internet, and then you play it and it's in 4K and everything. I understand that requires an internet connection, but if I don't want to do that, here's what I can do. Pop this baby in an Xbox 360 and play it as it was originally released, and that's fine. That's fine with me. I enjoyed it that way. I enjoy it the new way. I'm actually making a Let's Play on this game, on the enhanced version of it over on our Let's Play channel starting soon, so that's in the description down below.
Degenerate Plays!
Degenerate Plays. So my point is, there's multiple ways I can enjoy this. There's nothing wrong with digital media existing. But the future that Xbox seems to want is a future where physical media does not exist. A future where Game Pass is your only option, or buying digital. But the consumer does not get actual savings on these digital games. And you might say, well, Jay, there are digital sales all the time. Yeah, there are, but they're not as steep as they were pitched back in the day. They're not like the Steam sale. You go on Steam, you go on PC where digital is the only option, and you actually are seeing actually good sales on there. But you don't see that on these console infrastructures. Why? Because they own the services. But these leaked documents seem to indicate a future that Xbox wants where you own nothing, where everything is streamed, or everything is bought in digitally, or everything is rented through Game Pass, which is really the big one. There is a push from Microsoft, or at least there has been, to release discless consoles. We did see that with Sony, obviously with a version of the PS5, and we did see it as well with Xbox with a version of the Series consoles. So we've already seen both of these big boys playing around in their ring, the console wars, releasing a digital-only console. We've seen that, and as is, it was an option. If you wanted to do it, that's on you. If you didn't want to do it, then you didn't have to. You could buy the more expensive model, and you'd have more options. You could buy discs, or you could get digital. That's fine. I'm all for consumer options. I don't want digital to not exist. But the push to release more discless consoles, including a discless refresh of the Xbox Series X with improved features, is kind of troubling. And you might think, well, Jay, how so? I mean, you just said they already released a, discless console. They already did that, and we still have discs. So what the hell are you talking about? Well, when coupled with some of their other plans, it starts to become a little worrisome. For example, one of their plans is to do integrated cloud gaming with the next generation of consoles. And when I say integrated, I mean integrated. Right now, there's already always online problems. Like, for example, when you make a new account on Xbox Series X, you actually have to connect to the internet in order to make a Microsoft account. I believe this was the first generation where they did that. It might have happened on the Xbox One. I don't think you necessarily had to, but that's pushing my memory. But when it comes down to it, that's already like a hurdle, but you're like, okay, well, you could go anywhere and do that, right? I mean, like, let's say you didn't have good internet at home, you still have some kind of internet, probably that's not a big deal. It is ignoring the people in different parts of the world that do still have technology and don't have good internet at all, but, we ignore those people because for the sake of the argument, I think it's a lot easier for people to say, I don't care about them, always online is more convenient. I think what's unfortunate, though, is that even with always online, you still have the rights issues of DRM and ownership. You still have the fact that you have to always accept EULAs, always accept terms of service, things can be changed, things can be taken down, and if we are now pushing towards a future where you have cloud-based gaming, where it is integrated with games, it's also becoming more troubling. So here's a couple of examples of games that I think there are misconceptions around, not just Spider-Man and Spyro, but just these generations of games, PS4, PS5. You can put either of these games in and play them start to finish, Spyro Reignited or Miles Morales. And some people are going to say, no, you can't. There's updates. You have to download the updates. Or you have to be online for achievements to actually register. I guess I should say trophies and actually go on your account. There are going to be caveats. Yes, updates do help games. They make them better, usually, unless they break the game. But you can actually play through these games start to finish. You can try this yourself. I'm being serious. You can try this yourself with most games. Like, I'm talking 9 out of 10 or more. It will work. Pull the internet. Just shut your internet down completely. Or turn off Wi-Fi on your system or whatever you want to do. Unplug your LAN cable if you have it in from that console. No internet to your Xbox Series console. No internet to your PS5. You can put in Miles Morales. It will install off of the disc. People say, well, when I put this disc in, it's just a key, it's downloading. That's wrong. That's actually false in most cases. Where that's true is when it says internet connection required. In that case, it's either always online or you need to do the internet download in order to play it because the full game is not on the disc. With Spider-Man, this game is fully on this disc. It's just that there are updates that have added additional things to the game and improved stability, stuff like that. So yes, I understand that it's not like the glory days where I could pop in X2 Wolverine's Revenge on my PS2 and there would be no downloads and no installation. I understand that. But games have gotten bigger and more complicated, which means they install off the disc, and then if they need performance patches or things like that, which I maintain games should probably be held back a little longer to not need as many of these, but they're not, then those things download off the internet. Do you understand what I'm saying? These are still full games. When you get into things that are always online or require an internet connection, there are always going to be examples of things that don't fit in this margin, in this category. But they are not the majority. Most games you can pop in, no internet, install, and still play through it. It's just a question of if they improve the game over time. I wish that they didn't have to do that. That's a whole nother can of worms that sucks, but they're still playable start to finish. So here's the problem with what they want to do. With this cloud integration, with these hybrid consoles that they want by 2028, they are already pushing for discless with that refresh mid-generation for the Series X. So you might think, okay, well, what would this cloud hybrid console be? Well, it would be kind of what they were talking about with Crackdown 3 back in the day, where they wanted to make a game and have all of its assets load in essentially from the internet. They essentially want to use streaming power of the internet to boost what the game can do. I don't really think this is necessary. I think it's very silly because, at the end of the day, you can just let technology progress at a normal pace and it's fine. You know, graphics cards now blow graphics cards from 10 years ago out of the water. Like, it's insane. And they didn't need streaming cloud technology, hybrid graphics cards with the internet. They didn't need that shit. What did they do? They improved the technology over time, and it was all through the hardware. Then you would install software as well, but it wasn't streaming from the internet. As is, we have options. We have the option to get physical or digital. They both have benefits. You don't want to get off your ass? You download a digital game and you sit there and continue to pull belly button lint out of there, you know? But if you are fine with getting off your ass and putting in 3 steps to your shelf, then you get up, you get the disc, it installs off of the disc, and then it downloads updates from the internet. Those are called options, like I said, and those are good for consumers because guess what? If Spyro Reignited, which is probably sweaty now from my hands, if Spyro Reignited is on sale for $15 at Walmart, but it is $30 on the PlayStation Store, I have an option to go buy Spyro Reignited at Walmart for $15. Maybe that's worth it to me. Or I have an option to say, I don't want to leave my house. I'm going to pay the extra $15 because I don't care. And I can get the digital version. Then the way things are set up right now, you can re-download that pretty much forever, but it's up to their discretion if they allow you to do that. Something that I somehow forgot to mention in this whole video with options is you also have the option to buy used games if you want to. Without physical discs, there are no used games. Unless you're going to sell someone your entire account, which is pretty much always against terms of service on any of these platforms, you're not going to sell a used digital game. This would completely kill the idea of used games and being able to share games. Do you remember when there was the whole thing where they were trying to do the Don Matrix style Xbox One and it was a ridiculous system, and then PlayStation turned around and memed on them hard? Basically, they dropped and did the gritty on the Xbox's corpse by saying, here's how you share games with a PlayStation. And they took a physical disc and handed it back and forth. And that was the whole thing, and they just memed on Xbox. Well, if digital is the only option, or even worse, you know, rental and streaming and Game Pass and all this stuff is the only option in the future, there is no more sharing games really unless you're on family plans. And there's no more getting used games, sharing used games, letting someone borrow a game, buying a used game because maybe you don't have a lot of money. That's another thing too. This is hurting those who are not more economically privileged. So maybe someone can only afford to get a couple games a year and they're used. Sorry, that's gone. Now you have to wait for a digital sale, and if that never comes, you never get your game. And people will say, well, Jay, there's consumer protection laws in the European Union. There's consumer protection laws in different places. Here's the thing, there's not really in the US yet. There are not very good consumer protection laws around digital. So depending on what region of the world you're in, you could get absolutely bent over, you know, and done till Sunday. It doesn't matter because the company has the power there. In some places like the European Union, yes, they don't. But you know what they can do? Ban you from their service. They can find reasons to get rid of you, and then they don't have to honor the law anyway, because there aren't actually good laws around banning you from their service. Here's a great example of that. That whole kerfuffle of what was going around with Xbox a while ago, with the botnet interfaces on PC where you could basically mass report accounts and get them kind of taken down just like that. Those kinds of things are going to become more prevalent in the age of always online, always connected to the internet, because digital warfare is an actual thing. Somebody teabagged you in COD, maybe you want to kill their entire family. That's something that we've literally seen. We have seen people go batshit insane, doxing people over the stupidest stuff. You know, we have seen people lash out in non-physical ways to get even with people. You think getting your account banned that you have $5,000 worth of games from over 20 years, you think that that's not going to be something people do when they're willing to swat you over something? Of course they're going to. And then you lose the ownership of all that stuff, which you never owned anyway, because it's all online on their servers with keys saying you own it. Even if you go the argument route of, there's nothing on the disc, it's just a key that says you own it. You always have this key. You always have this key. Nobody's taking this key from you. Short of like a house fire or like somebody coming in and robbing you, which like, welcome to the Second Amendment country. Good luck with that, I guess. It's not going anywhere. It's not leaving your possession. But when your keys are tied to digital accounts only, they can leave your possession. You get banned. You lose your password like a moron. That happened to T. He lost his password for his Xbox account. He lost everything he had on that Xbox account. He contacted Microsoft like 5 times. They didn't restore it. He never got access back to that account. It had like 30,000 gamer score, thousands of hours of games played, a ton of digital games on it. Gone. Never got that back. That was his fault. Yes, for losing the password, I understand. But still, they didn't really have any incentive to restore it, and they didn't. Here's some more examples. GTA 5. This game, if you own it on PS4 or the old version of it for Xbox One, you can play it right off the bat. You install it with no internet, and you have all the original songs in the game. You have all of that stuff. Now, what this version has is they've lost a lot of the licensing, and Rockstar, being as rich as they are under Take-Two, still doesn't feel the need to pay the licensing fees for these pieces of music. So you turn on the Los Santos radio in-game, and there's content not in this version of the game that was in the old version. And that's even with a disc version, okay? But because I have that old version on PS4, I still have all that content. And my point is, they can always take things away. Look at games like PT on the PlayStation Store. That was directly through PlayStation. It's nowhere to be found now. They actually made ways where you couldn't reinstall it on newer generations of system. You can't go back and reinstall the game. You just pretty much had to have it on your console, and that's all it is. And if you got rid of it, well, then you have a problem because it's not even on the store anymore to re-download. And right now we are at the mercy of them allowing us to re-download things. Another example of that is The Amazing Spider-Man 2 for PS4. Not a great game, but the one that came right to my head. That game was recalled. They don't have the license for it anymore. They pulled it from store shelves because Activision no longer had the Spider-Man game license. So what happened to that game? Well, you can either buy the physical now or not get it. And unless and until these things become emulatable on emulators, you are not able to play those games, meaning you're going to be waiting a long time for some games in order to actually be able to play them, especially if they ever go away from the hybrid release that they're trying to do now, where they release I would say exclusive, like Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation, and then later they release it on PC, or Xbox will release Halo Infinite and they'll release it on PC. If they ever go away from that again and they just want to lock it down to that console infrastructure for some reason, now it's going to take years for you to be able to play that game on something else and actually be able to hold onto those files and not be at their mercy of losing them. Metal Gear Solid 4, great example of this. That game took like over a decade to run well via emulation on PC. You can now play it 4K, 120 FPS, I believe, really well done, but it took over a decade to get there, right? We were at the mercy of people pouring their heart, soul, sweat, and tears into getting that thing running. And when you are reliant on these digital marketplaces, just like how Xbox wants you to be with their diskless system and with Game Pass, and when you're reliant on those infrastructures, you start having problems with being able to access this media later unless it is old enough to be able to be emulated, which is a thing, and people think I don't use emulation. But here's a great reason why I buy physical games even for some old games. Not all, but some. Here's a good example of a game that I bought physical of an old version, and I might actually replace this at some point because it's got some dings in the art and I have OCD. But Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus. This is a little bit more of a niche spin-off to Final Fantasy VII. It is a shooter starring Vincent Valentine. I could get into a bunch of unnecessary details, but at the end of the day, here's what I have to do to play this game now. I have options because I own this disc. If I just have a ROM, I don't really have as many options unless I burn it onto a disc and then I put it into a PS2, and that's like a whole thing that there's no reason to do because I could just emulate it. But with this, what I can do is I can either put it in a PS2 and play it, or I can put it in my DVD and CD drive for my computer, dump the files onto my computer. They are still safely on the disc as well. It's not ruining the disc. I just rip the files off, stay here, and go on there. And then I can run it through an emulator there as well and improve that experience there. So I have options with this game. And that's the thing that I love about physical, is it has options to it. Digital does not have options. You are stuck with the options that the storefront or the infrastructure that you are reliant on give you. Another example of this is The Sims 4. It actually has physical discs for the first couple things they released for it on PC. But you know what the deal is with those physical discs? They are what physical detractors say they are. They're just keys, because those physical discs are tied to Origin, which was EA's old games launcher. Now that Origin is defunct, it's not really even a thing anymore, and Cosmo is going crazy down in his little crinkle box. Now that Origin is gone, those discs don't work. They basically had to just give everybody Sims 4 on the EA store and make it free to play because that game was gone. It was just a key that basically let you download the digital files and run it through Origin to say I own this game. And so now that that's dead, it's worthless. There's no reason to have that disc at all. That's the future that they want. They want a future where physical games, if they exist, are pretty much just a shell of their former selves and don't matter. We're already heading there with constant updates. We're already heading there with games like Cyberpunk 2077 that suck balls at launch, but now are a good game. We are heading there because the 1.0 build of that game, while playable, is barely worth playing. But you get to the updated new version, which you need the internet to get to, and you have a problem. Whereas back in the day, when you had Game of the Year editions and on-disc DLC, you would actually get those games without needing the internet. You want Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare? You could buy a Xbox 360 disc with Undead Nightmare on it. You want Fallout 3's The Pit, Operation Anchorage, Broken Steel, all these DLCs, Mothership Zeta, you could buy discs that had those DLC on them. You had options, or you go on the Xbox store and you buy them. Options. This is why I don't understand when anytime I talk about physical media, the digital people, not all, but a lot, will say that they don't want physical to exist anymore. It's almost like they like circle jerk themselves to it. Like they get off to it. It's pleasurable to them that physical is going away. I don't understand why you don't want consumers to have options. That's a bad thing. Yes, some areas like the European Union, like I said, have laws, but there are ways around them. You think these billion-dollar companies that pay millions out their ass for lawyers every year, you think they don't find ways around the laws? I'm not saying those laws shouldn't exist, but you really think they don't find ways around them? Why do you think that if I say good game to someone on Xbox, and by the way, this has happened, this has been documented on Reddit a bunch of times now, it's why I don't even message strangers anymore ever for really any circumstance except saying just something simple like thank you or smiley face. The reason I don't do that is because it's been documented on Reddit and other places where someone will say something like GG, like good game, and they will get their account suspended because they will get botnetted, or someone will report it because they're mad at this person that they lost. And Xbox gets so many of these reports that some of them are automatically flagged as true and never actually get a human review. They never actually get looked over. And so then that account is just stuck in limbo. Maybe it gets banned, maybe it gets suspended and it gets back, but it's a bit of a kick in the balls to say, wow, my account is not really my account. The only things that are really mine are things that I can hold in my hands. That's the world we live in already, and it's going even further that direction with things like this mid-cycle refresh that's diskless, with things like this hybridization plan for gaming where even if you were to have physical discs, you'd put it in and then it would stream assets from the internet. Those things are killing what this is. And it's really frustrating to me because anytime there's censorship, the old version is almost always unceremoniously pulled, patched, or just disappears, when it comes to digital games. So the further we get into this, the more it becomes streaming, the more it becomes digital only, the more it becomes Xbox Game Pass rentals, get you to pay $20 a month, and now that's your only way to play. To play games. Maybe at some point it's $50 a month because they want to make a bunch of money off of it because of how much they have on there and our deprecation of currency, how that goes down. And because there's no other option, because there is no physical. Now games can be whatever they want them to be. And you can point to PC and say, well, Jay, they are very cheap on PC. Yeah, because it's easy to pirate on PC. Super easy. People are passing around free games all the time. So of course they're going to be cheap on PC because they always want to give you that option to just buy the game legitimately. They're doing the Netflix strategy of make it so cheap that there's no reason to pirate. So they have Humble Bundle where they partner with charities. They have Steam sales where they take, Steam takes a cut of it. They have the Epic Game sales where, Epic Games takes a cut of it, but the publisher still gets some money because that's much better to them than piracy. One of the spins that they are throwing on this entire issue is that this is also to reduce carbon emissions, to increase sustainability, all of those different things. But they don't actually talk about how much server energy you will actually need to run the infrastructure of these things as they get bigger and bigger. You already need a ton in order to house these digital files, to be able to have the connection so that you can have, so many people playing online together, because it's not all just peer-to-peer. They do run through these middle ground services. They do run through Xbox infrastructure or PlayStation, Sony's infrastructure or Nintendo's infrastructure. They are running through middleman servers, and also they're not talking about how much server space and how much processing power they are going to need in the future if they ever do go to this hybridization cloud model where they have different console games that are loading part of their game on the actual hardware and then streaming the rest of the resources to the machine. That is going to take an enormous amount of power. That's going to take an enormous amount of water for water cooling if they use that for their server farms. That's going to take an enormous amount of electricity and energy, and not all electricity or energy is cleanly produced. That's something that's very important as well. So when they tell you this crap like, oh, this is for your own good, oh, this is for the environment, oh, this is for this and that, they tell you this all the time. Almost always this is a cost-cutting thing for a company. They don't actually get rid of straws at restaurants because they want to save turtles. They get rid of them because they don't want to pay for them. They don't get rid of plastic bags at stores because they want to enable recycling. If they wanted to do that, they would give you paper bags, right? Things that are easy to recycle and have been for a long time. No, they don't do those things because they want to cut out the cost. They want to nickel and dime you for every possible thing. And again, I want to throw in one final point here as well with the price, which is that if this was for your benefit, all digital games would be cheaper than they are from the start. Instead of charging you $70 for a physical game, they would charge you $60 or $65. I'm talking US dollars. These are more expensive in other places already. For a digital game, they would start cheaper. They don't do that because there's no interest in that. Or you might get how Activision does things, where a Call of Duty game can be over 10 years old and still be about $50 US digital, because used games are gone, the physical option is gone, and they suckered you into doing it to save the planet while they build more and more and more and more unsustainable server farms. So basically what it ends up being is a lie. It's not actually done for your benefit. They don't make them cheaper. It's not actually done for the benefit of the planet, because if it was, they would find a way that wasn't just consuming massive amounts of energy. It's a lie. It is always a lie. It always will be a lie, and people buy into it. It gives you options, and if you don't care about those things, then you can update the game or buy it digitally or do whatever you want, and that's your call. It's your money. I'm not here to tell you how to spend yours. I'm sure plenty of people will look at my games and say, well, you clearly spent yours poorly, even though they were accumulated over a lot of years, and that's fine. Judge me all you want. But what's frustrating to me is the removal of options. The fact that so many people want to bend over for these companies and let them take these options away. The fact that so many people don't care. The fact that, like Mudahar said from Some Ordinary Gamers, people laughed Xbox out of the room when Xbox One launched and it was going to be always online. They said, that is a joke. Don Matrix stepped down from the company and went and did something else. I think he went on to work at Zynga, the mobile game company, but regardless, it's just from my memory. I shouldn't even know that, so if I do, I don't know why I do, but anyways. It was a joke at the time. People flooded to the PS4. People were like, no, I'm not buying that shit, and they ran away. They were like, mandatory Xbox Connect? Mandatory internet? No! Like, this is weird. This is like an NSA wet dream where you've got like a camera always online in your room, and they wanted to do things like, if there's more than 2 people in the room, they charge you more to stream a movie or rent a movie. That's the kind of stuff they were trying to do. We are moving more and more towards that future now. Little by little, they indoctrinate us a little bit at a time on anything. What does this government official want you to believe? Sprinkle a little bit here, here, here. What direction does the gaming industry want you to go? Sprinkle a little bit here, here, here. Leaving breadcrumbs that you follow. It's literally the old famous James Woods clip from Family Guy. Ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy. You follow it, follow it, follow it, and then eventually you're in a trap. But in the meantime, oh boy, it sure is sweet. You know, gobbling up them Skittles, gobbling up that Xbox. And it's so frustrating to me to see people do this, to follow the trail and not ever look up to see, well, where could this possibly lead? These companies do not have our best interests at heart. And at the end of the day, there are games coming out now that are trash when it comes to this, even on physical. Metal Gear Solid Master Collection on Switch, the Arkham Collection on Switch, those are both games that are not on the cartridge. I believe Arkham Asylum's on the cartridge, and almost nothing is on the cartridge when it comes to Metal Gear. But on the other systems, you can get those fully on disc, you can get those fully on console, and you have them forever. And unlike what people say, disc degradation is not really a big deal unless you're living in a really bad climate for preserving your physical media. And Blu-rays especially are very resilient and last a long time. Why is it okay to absolutely destroy the past of gaming media and have to rely entirely on fans to make emulators work? That is the future we're going to. Not where you can't play old games, but where you will need a gaming PC and dedicated fans who have the technical know-how to make those games work, to make PS2, PS3, eventually PS4 games run natively, or not natively, I mean non-natively, through an emulator, by basically brute forcing it and finding workarounds to trick the game into thinking it's playing on that console. Why do you think it took a decade for Metal Gear Solid 4 to be good on PC? Because there was no PC port. So we were at the mercy of it being a PlayStation exclusive that was only ever on PlayStation, so you needed a bunch of nerds to make it run on PC. And thank God for the nerds, because I don't know how to do this shit, but if they didn't figure it out, and if there ever comes a day where there's nobody around doing it, then we're entirely at the mercy of these companies. And with how stupid your government wants you to be, no matter what country you're in, and how dumb everyone's becoming, it really easily could hit the point where there's fewer and fewer and fewer people preserving these games, making them playable on PC, making them accessible later on. Eventually, this leads to a thing called Monopolies. I don't know if many people have experienced this. You probably have and don't even know it because of shell companies and parent companies and things like that that own so many companies under them like a spider web. But it leads to a place where there's no consumer options, and you walk into a telecommunications company like back in the day when they had to split up the phone companies. It was, you can have a phone or you can fuck off. That's what it was. You can have a phone or not. There was no, I'll go to Verizon, I'll go to AT&T. Old people like me will remember Singular Wireless, Sprint. You know, there weren't all these options. It was, have one. Don't. We don't care. Because so many people will buy it anyway that, oh yeah, you want... You want a discount? Yeah, let me just ring that up for you. Oh, there's 5 other people in line behind you that are going to get it anyway, so there's the door. That's the way these things head. Not to consumer protections, not to deals for you, not to shortcuts, not to happy fairyland where everyone dances around with rainbows and sunshine and they get all their games all day long every day. It leads to a future where you don't have access to these things, and at least admit you don't care if you don't care. Because I respect that argument of, I don't care at all about the preservation of media because there's always something new. That is dumb to me, dumb as hell, but I respect it more than, well, I don't think we're heading there, because we are in real time heading there, and it's becoming glaringly obvious. This could kill physical media, which then removes consumer options. If this works for them, let's say they go through with it, PlayStation looks over, and they say, wow, that worked good for them. All right, then they do it. So it's frustrating to me to see the way this is going. I know this was a video I couldn't wrap up shortly. My wife Jill kept looking at me like, why don't you finish it up? But it's such an in-depth conversation, and anytime I get a small detail wrong, there will be like 50 people in the digital only crowd that are like, well, actually. Yeah, exactly that. And so I try very hard to cover my bases on these topics, but it is so exhausting to me, and I actually will echo what Mudahar said on something. If it ever hits this point, I think I'm just done with console gaming. I just wouldn't buy it anymore. Because like I said, I could get it for free later on through emulation, like, when no one cares about it anymore. Well, that's illegal. Okay. People will still do it. Or I could just get it alongside the release on PC because that's all digital anyway, and I could pay nothing. I could go on, I'm not even going to list sites. Okay, I'm not going to say sites, but I could go on a website that provides deep discounts because Steam codes are stolen. Those exist. And they're like, wow, we have this new game for $10. I could do that if I wanted to. There's a billion options on PC. It's not just Steam, unlike what you think. It's Steam, the Epic Games Store, the EA Store, whatever the hell it's called, their launcher, the Ubisoft one, Ubisoft Connect. There's the Microsoft Xbox app. There is GOG, where you can get games without DRM in most cases, not all. There's a lot of options on PC, but you go on Xbox, here's your option. The Xbox Game Store. You go on PlayStation, here's your option. The Sony PlayStation Store. You go on Switch, here's your option. The Nintendo Switch Online Store. The eShop. That's it. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. This is something that whips me up to no end. If Nate was here, this would have been a 3-hour video. We would have had an Avengers Endgame level event where you'd have to go take a piss in the middle and be like, what the hell is wrong with these people? But it makes me and Nate so mad. I'm so glad I met a fellow old man to be my best friend, where we can argue about this shit together and be like, back in my day, you could play GTA and you could listen to Uptown Funk or whatever on the radio. And nowadays, it's, not a thing. I don't know. It's frustrating to me, but let me know what you think. I hope that these plans changed. Phil Spencer said some of these plans have changed. I don't know which ones. And frankly, I'm very disappointed because when I was looking at Xbox and Microsoft, I was actually very pleased with where things had gone. The Series X is very powerful. They don't have tons of good exclusive games like PlayStation or Nintendo do, but it's a great place to play things like some of my favorite series like Assassin's Creed even, where games are enhanced and they have backwards compatibility and they have FPS boost. And they were doing a lot of stuff there that was very consumer friendly. It required downloads, but it never felt like it required downloads because they were holding you hostage, to get the files. It felt like it required downloads just so that they didn't have to release entirely new physical versions. It felt like it required downloads to convenience you and them, not because of some nefarious plan to eliminate a media type. And that to me seems to be the direction we are heading, which is why I made this whole long video, because it makes me so frustrated and upset, and I want to see these things around for future people. I could die tomorrow, and I still want people to be able to go and play Dirge of Cerberus. I still want people to be able to go and play Spyro Reignited. You know why? Because I'm off wherever it is we go when we die. I think heaven, you think whatever you want. And I'm doing my thing. I'm chilling with the Lord, But you know what you're doing? You're still here on Earth. You're enjoying art. You're making connections with people. You're experiencing things. I want people to be able to experience these things going forward. I don't want everything to be a rental, subscription service, whatever. That just hurts my soul. I don't want that future, and I want that to stop. In an age where a lot of games are already, not accessible through digital anymore, I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to see more Forza Horizon 2s where they're delisted. I don't want to see more PTs. I want to see these games people can access forever. So anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I do appreciate you very much. If you stuck it out this long, that means you probably don't find me immensely annoying or you fell asleep. So in your insomnia-induced or narcolepsy-induced state, if you want to check out my other channels, we have Degenerate Plays, where we play through games podcast style. I have my channel with my wife, Jill. That's Magical Jill. She creates a lot of videos. Maybe you're into Pokemon, maybe you're into collectibles. She does stuff over there. I'm in a lot of her videos. And we have things down in the description that I'd love it if you checked out. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shui until I inevitably make this video locked behind subscription services and also make it so that you have to rent it.